What's going on, guys? So I just made a video recently of me talking about different upgrade paths on how you should go about building a custom gun. This is gonna be a little bit more of a different video. I'm going to actually take you through my process or process I would recommend if you're trying to upgrade an airsoft gun. So just going ahead to start off with, I have these four retailers that I primarily use. Again, EVIC, one of the big guys in the biggest in the industry. You can easily substitute EVIC with Airsoft GI. I just feel that, especially for internal components, EVIC definitely has more competitive pricing and more of the brands that you're going to want um, compared to Airsoft GI or uh, Airsoft Megastore. Those are like the main three that I use, but EVIC definitely is the best in the game right now. Airsoft GI is making a comeback. Don't get me wrong; it's really a close second, but we're gonna stick with EVIC for this one. So your major retailer, whichever one you choose to go with. Um, that's mainly to get the base gun. Brill Armory, again, another great website, great customer service. Shipping is awesome. Only beat out by shipping with clandestine. If I'm trying to get same day shipping, more consistently it happens with clandestine airsoft. Brill Armory is more consistently next day shipping, but they both can get you their product within 3-4 days of you clicking the order button. So that's really nice. And then eBay. I think a lot of people skip out on eBay, but you can find some really good parts here. A lot of the smaller retailers sell on eBay. I think like eVic, Airsoft GI parts can go on eBay. Heck, Umbrella Armory even has an eBay shop that they sell parts on. And you can definitely find like parts that you would find overseas for really cheap. I've bought JG pistons, JPU pistons for stupid cheap on here. Raptors airsoft gears for like 13, 14 bucks. Motors on here super cheap as well. So just have eBay on here. Try to find some airsoft retailers, small retailers that you can bookmark and save on your eBay site. And but yeah. So first off, let's go ahead and start off with picking an airsoft gun. So let's just go ahead and actually let's look at new arrivals. New arrivals, see what's new out there. The Ronin 47, definitely a cool gun, but proprietary mags. I personally wouldn't necessarily go for that. Keep on scrolling through. Um, Doesn't look like there's any cool airsoft guns. Now, okay, this is a good point. So let's say you saw this gun right here. I personally would steer clear of a gun like this if you're not planning on using it stock out of the box. You can do very basic things to guns that have proprietary internals like this, because if we look right here, the new Silver Edge Silver Edge V2, I think this is, with the upgraded control unit. This is a copy of the Ares by quite a bit. I think they even use Ares triggers. But despite that, if you have a gun that has proprietary internals like this, you're not going to be able to upgrade triggers, trigger switches, or anything like that. Spring guides aren't probably going to be able to be upgraded. And then you can see right here, a thing to look at is that this reinforcement could possibly run into issues with uh, gear fitment. I've definitely seen this in the past where reinforced gearboxes with all this extra metal part run into issues. Excuse me, where gear sets are too big to fit in this space, especially the spur gear or step gear. So something to watch out for. I personally don't really see the point of reinforcing the back of the gearbox like this. It doesn't really add too much structural rigidity. Just use a better material. But yeah, so we're not going to mess with this guy. Again, it would be a cool little project, but if anything more than an upgraded high torque hop-up system and lipo, I wouldn't necessarily do too much with this guy. So we're gonna go ahead and go back and keep looking for something else. Let's just go ahead and go into airsoft guns. Let's see something common. So for guns that are just going to be pretty straightforward to upgrade as far as internals go, I'm going to recommend either VFC or GMP. Now I'm a GMP fanboy, so we're going to go ahead and stick with GMP, stick with our roots. And wow, a lot of them are out of stock. Probably should have anticipated this because GMPs they sell pretty quickly and they're not the most consistent with getting things back. Now I mentioned that video. If you're going to overhaul a gun, you should be spending at least $300. So that's going to be the MSRP for our gun. Let's go ahead and pick one that I looks pretty cool. The Widowmaker would be a pretty cool little build, but it's pretty bog standard. The Mott's High Speed is kind of interesting, but battery space would definitely be an issue with that one. I think the rest of them are going to be out of stock on the next page. Yeah. You know what? Let's go ahead and go with. I saw one out of the corner of my eye. This guy right here, the QRF. Basically, little airsoft gun again, CQBR style setup, but you have basically close to free float. There's no for triangle front sight, so that makes it look kind of cool. And it's just gonna be really basic. Changing out this rail system is stupid easy. The delta ring's integrated into this rail system actually, so you just knock off these little Allen screws right there, and then the gas block comes off. Unscrew this rail system. You can throw on whatever you want, and it's full metal outer barrel. So you might have to get the receiver rethreaded, but you really shouldn't run into too many issues with that. But yeah, let's just go ahead and add this into our cart. Again, $370 MSRP. So we're clear to overhaul this gun. Now, why I say this is because guns like this, if you're spending at least $300 on it, you're gonna get the intangibles are gonna be of higher quality. So the screws and the screw hole quality is gonna be a lot better. There's been thousands of times, well, not thousands, but that's over exaggeration. A bunch of times though with my cheaper boneyard guns where parts just strip out. Holes in gearboxes strip out. The screws in the mag release will strip out. Parts will just get loose like the selector switch. It's not meant to be taken off, or the body pins will start getting funky. And just other little external parts are just going to end up starting to wear down, and internal parts as well. Something that you don't even consider: cutoff lever might break. The spring gut might get loose, or I've seen this a lot actually. The anti-reversal latch spring snaps off, or the anti-reversal latch itself snaps into pieces because it's not able to handle the higher speed setup that you're trying to set up, the high performing setup. So that's going to be $10 for Linux air anti-reversal latch, or a $10, $15 mag release, and you have to worry about, is it going to fit in this receiver or not? It might require some sanding. Just avoid all that mess, avoid all of that, and stick with something like this. The main thing I think you're going to get is the intangibles, like the small screws, screw quality, spring quality, and then the gearbox shell quality as well. It's going to be much higher on a gun that's at least over $300. So we're going to stick with this to start off with. Okay, so we got the gun added to our cart. Let's go ahead and look at the internal parts. So now we need to figure out what type of build we want to do for this. I think this gun's really screaming CQB for me. We got some money to mess around with. So let's go ahead and do a DSG build. I don't know. There's something about DSGs that are just super fun. They're super fun guns to build, in all honesty. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to find any in stock on this website. So I know SHS sells some. Let's see. So one cool thing, you can actually use version 3 tappet plates in a version 2 gearbox, especially if it's a DSG. The difference in the back is very minimal, so we could add this. I'm going to hold off for now. Let's see what they got from Siege Tech. I really like using these upgraded sector gears more so than SHS sector gears. SHS sector gears are strong, don't get me wrong, but these are definitely higher quality. You can go with a full Cyclone setup if you want a full gear set, but these are stupid expensive. I personally think it's easier to sit in the middle and buy the Siege Tech sector gear and then a set of SHS gears on top of that. So let's go ahead but before we do that, let's compare prices. So go here. I already know that Clandestine doesn't have any in stock because I already checked before. That's another thing. Brill Armory more consistently restocks items than Clandestine, so just something to be wary of. Go to individual gears, price check real quick, and yeah, so they're both the same price. Another thing to think about is if you're going to want to get free shipping on any of your parts, there's no free shipping available on Brill Armory, so the more parts we add in here, the more expensive shipping is going to be. So let's go ahead for the time being and add it to our EVIC website cart because I don't want to get the shipping to be too expensive on the Brill website. So we have that in there. We're going to, however, add our SHS gear set from Brill Armory's website. So we're going to go here, see if they have 16-to-1s available. Ooh, a lot of them are out of stock, actually. 12-to-1s, 13-to-1s, 16-to-1s. So 16-to-1s. Again, really good setup. Oh, they're going to be a little bit faster than your average 18-to-1 setup, but I personally like 16-to-1s. It's pretty snappy on the 7.4, and they work really well. So let's go ahead and add these to the cart real quick. Next thing we're going to have to get is spring. Spring quality is something you should never cheap out on. The springs I've had the best luck with. I haven't had good luck with garter springs, actually. I've broken garter springs in the past before. So I'm not going to stick with those. Some people like them. I personally don't really care for them because they break on me. SHS springs have always been treated me well, but they're not in stock here. And also Systema springs from EVIC's website. They are actually really good quality as well. I have a couple of those. What's the highest rating they have on these? M150. It's okay, I guess. Let's go ahead and stick here. Oh, M170s are out of stock. Um, since I have a M150 spring in the P boys, I'm gonna go ahead and add this. So we're gonna tag this on right here. Add to cart. Now FPS might be a little bit low, but we should be fine. These are really good quality springs. $15. Definitely don't cheap out on springs. Um, but we can also again go back here and compare prices. Oh, Lonex springs are actually really good too. Let's see. No, that's not that. Lonex springs. M150, M170. Okay. Uh, So I'm just saying we got options here. I'm going to go ahead. Actually, let's go SHS M160. Really good quality. Going to be a little bit higher FPS than the Sistema Spring. Now, the next thing we're going to have to worry about is the bushings. I definitely know that for a fact that these are going to come with bearings out of the box. I personally would replace those. So let's go ahead and go bushings. Fuel limit tuning bushings, the best in the business. Don't cheap out, especially with the DSG. Again, we're overhauling this bad boy. Add the best possible fuel limit tunings into our GMP gearbox. Gonna treat us super nicely. Get rid of those GMP bearings. Again, they might survive, but we're not gonna risk it. So we have our drivetrain for the most part set up properly. Let's go ahead and add our motor. So motors are probably gonna be more expensive on Evic, but we're definitely going to get a higher selection compared to these other shops. I definitely know there's only SHS motors on the other site, on Clandestine. Don't really care for that. Um, Actually, now that I'm here, let me see Airsoft motor, what's available. Because there's, spelled that wrong. Completely butchered that. So you can see pretty competitive pricing comparatively. You can find some absolute steals if you just need stock motor replacements. You know, $20 right there. Ifrit motors, something like that. Definitely more brands are going to be available here. You have Action Army, Element Motors, GMP stock motors, some rare motors like this. I've actually bought a bunch of these. These are super nice motors. They're like Crytek 30Ks, but for $25. Really nice. And this is the only guy that sells them, but they don't come with a spring. But regardless, I have this one. This is the Motor Max CR, and it works really nicely. But we're not going to use it in this build. We're going to buy some a little bit nicer than this. Let's go ahead and see what they have here. 40K motor, could work, could work. Let's go ahead and stick with a 22 TPA motor, like yeah, ASG 22 TPA, super nice quality. Well, not the nicest, actually. While we're at that, let me see if there's better brands. ASG motor, Infinity motors are okay. Their boost motors are better value proposition than the other ones. Um, tough, tough. There's no Starways added in stock right now, which sucks. Uh, Action Army? Question mark. Yeah, I'm feeling this motor. I'm feeling this motor right here, and it's cheaper than it is on eBay. So let's go ahead and add this one to cart. $75 motor, really nice right there. Now we're going to want to add a MOSFET system. Now, personally, my personal take on it, trigger units are not necessary for builds like this, but they are helpful. It eliminates quite a few of the moving components around in the gearbox. You have the safety selector, the cutoff lever spring, all attached to the selector plate. That's a lot of moving parts. And if you can eliminate that to something simple like Leviathan or a Titan, a lot less wear actually compared to, all the other moving parts out there. And for high speed setup, high performance setup, I think you're going to be running a MOSFET anyway. I think just forking over the extra cash for a Leviathan or something like that is definitely going to be worth it. Um, we could go with Perun. I don't have much experience with optical MOSFETs, but from what I can hear, what I've been told, they're pretty seamless to upgrade. I'm going to stick with the Leviathan. These are my favorites. So let's go ahead and stick with this. Wire to stock, black trigger, it's the cheapest. So let's go ahead and go with that. $109, very competitive pricing, really good performance. The wiring's kind of cheap. Not gonna lie, that's the one downside. The wiring's pretty cheap. It's like 18 gauge, not really true 16 gauge wiring, unless they upgraded it in recent models, but I don't think they have. And let's add that. So we're at 568. $40 there and $5 there. So we have all that stuff sorted out. Now here's the interesting thing. we actually don't necessarily need to upgrade the compression components except for the air nozzle, because the air nozzle I know on the GMPs does not have a O-ring on it. I'm not sure the quality of piston heads on GMPs, but I'm almost certain that they're going to last. Just because my JG piston heads last quite some time, so we're going to stick with the stock piston head. You could do like an O-ring upgrade if you need to buy some O-rings. You can buy the hardware store for super cheap for the right size. So we don't need to upgrade that, but we are going to get a new air nozzle. So I know they're the cheapest on websites like this. Just make sure cross-reference, always cross-reference gearbox parts, nozzles. I'm going to go with a Lonix nozzle, and Lonix makes it's the best in the business. And they only have one for the G36 and it's out of stock. So let's go ahead and go here. Garter. Let's see, low. Also, it would be nice to get the gun in our hands first off, and then what am I trying to say? Measure the length of the nozzle, because there's many different lengths of inner nozzles for M4s. For example, this one's 21.3, which is the standard length, but a CAR 15 one is 20.7. We're going to go with 21.3. That seems to be the industry standard for air nozzles in M4s, so we're going to stick with this one. Add to cart. And it's there. So that's pretty much going to... Oh, we need a piston as well. Now, you can cheap out and go with SHS pistons, or JG pistons, or Lonix pistons. These are heavy, though. These are much heavier than your standard piston. But guys, the best in the business for pistons is hands down the Kratos piston. Like, if you, again, for a build like this, we don't want to have to worry about parts. We don't have to worry about parts breaking. The Kratos piston is the best. I bought one. I was using cheap pistons in the P-Boys for the longest, kept stripping them instantly. Finally bought a Kratos, and all problems solved. Another thing, the rack in here is loose well, not loose, but it's not oversized for the piston housing, which allows for your adhesive, whether it's epoxy or super glue. It's much easier to super glue this rack in. You get much more surface area with this piston compared to a JG piston, full metal rack piston, for example. There's very minimal play between or space for the adhesive to make surface area contact between both the body of the piston and the rack. Also, properly machined the rear portion. This is the primary culprit for why pistons break. This little lip right here, or let's see, right here, this little lip right there. You can see right here where I'm circling my cursor. That on most pistons is not properly molded, so it'll come super weak sometimes. I've seen it happen in JG pistons, JPU pistons, SHS pistons, even my soft air pistons that I have, the zero stock piston. I had one originally for the people that snapped. The one in my XCR is not even glued in. The rack isn't glued in, I don't think, and it's still running strong. So again, if you just want quality control and don't have to worry about it, again, super lightweight material, much nicer body material than anything else, much nicer metal material and teeth. Kratos piston is the way to go. Add it to the cart, and we're gonna be happy. All right, so that's pretty much gonna cover, I'd say 80 to 90% of the parts that we need for this build. I was just thinking about this. The Action Army motor is good. Another motor that I've really been feeling is the AIM top motor, the high torque motor. I have this one in my P-Boys as well. Really nice motor, 18 TPA. Gonna be a little bit slower, a little bit more efficient than the 30K motor by ASG or Action Army, excuse me, and also maybe run a little bit cooler. But we shouldn't see a significant difference between these two. As long as we're shimmed properly, both motors will work. This is more of a budget-oriented thing, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the Action Army in this setup. But yeah, the AIM Top is one of my favorite high-torque motors, just to throw into any gun, really. So we have the gears. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. We have the gear set. We have the bushings, the air nozzle. Going to be using stock piston head, stock cylinder head, and the tappet plate. Yeah, forgot about that. Let's go ahead and go with a Lonix tappet plate. Again, you can use stock. GMP tappet plates are kind of weird. They're weirdly machined. It's like almost like a triangle, unless they've updated it. But I'm pretty sure that will come with an older gearbox. not their upgraded i5 gearbox. Where's tappet plates? Am I blind? Here it is. Um, but anyway, Garter tappet plates are good, but Lonix I think are just as good, if a dollar cheaper. Let's go ahead and add this one to the cart. Super strong quality. Can handle a lot of stress. Are not going to break on you. Add to cart, and we're good to go. Another thing to think about. Again, we are spending some money here, but just a spring setup, Lonix spring set. This, if anything breaks on you, especially springs. This is spring for a cutoff lever. Um, and this other one's for, what's this long one for? One's for a cutoff lever. The other one's for, what's it for? I can't remember what this other one's for. But you have selector switch, trigger trolley, anti-reversal latch, trigger, and tappet plate. We're mainly focused on the uh, anti-reversal latch and the tappet plate. So this is a worthwhile upgrade. Again, just replacement strings unless one of them snaps. Again, we shouldn't have to buy this, but it's $4.50, and you get good replacement parts. Springs are wear items, so they will wear out on you eventually. Go ahead and stick with these, and you'll just have some rest assurance if something does break snap on you. You have replacements right there. So let me think. I think that's pretty much gonna wrap up everything. Spring guide we could upgrade in here if we really wanted to, but it is not necessary. But if you wanted to upgrade the spring guide, be my guest. Again, the spring guide in here is the only thing we're really going to be getting is a bearing on the back of it. But again, is that worth the extra $10 to $15? That's for you to decide. I personally use stock spring guides on the majority of my airsoft guns and have had zero issues. I think I bought one upgraded spring guide, one cheap upgraded spring guide. It was a ZCI one, and I saw no performance differences. Again, it's just there to hold the spring in place. This one's the ones on GMPs are made of metal, so as long as it's good quality metal, it's not broken. No need to upgrade it, in my personal opinion. And you don't need bearings either. A simple washer on the back of it, a proper size washer with some oil, is going to work just as well as a bearing housing. So that's something to think about. But yeah, no spring guide necessarily for this upgrade, because again, that's why I was buying the expensive gun. So let me just see. We have the gear set, we have the motor, the bushings, tappet plate, air nozzle, spring. I think this is pretty much all that we need for the gearbox to get this thing up and running. Yeah, we're pretty solid right there. Now, a couple things you're going to want to do. You're going to want to raise the gearbox shell when you first get it, clean out all the stock gear grease. I'm not going to add gear grease and that kind of stuff, but if you are curious about, where do I find gear grease and that kind of stuff, again, eBay is a great place to look for that, but just to show you here, there's under tools. You can find calipers, lapping kits, super lube synthetic grease is great here. But also, if you need to find metal polish, for example, if you need to sand your gearbox shell, you can find Brasso really easily, super cheap right here. Let's see if they have super lube. They should have super lube. Yeah, so super lube synthetic and silicone lubricant, super cheap here. You can find it all day, every day from a plethora of retailers. What else could you find here? Dean's connectors, something that can't be overlooked. So I personally would rewire my gun to XT60, but you can have Dean's connectors right here, 5 pairs, AMAS T plugs. Yeah, why not just add those to the cart? That should be fine for plenty of guns and batteries. XT60 connectors. Little quick Google search right there. You find some more with some good quality ones. 10 pairs of AMAS. AMAS is a good quality of. I think AMAS is the closest is a genuine. Where are these coming from? They're coming from. No, they're here in the States. And then also, if you were doing something like rewiring, 16 gauge wiring. You can find 16 gauge wire easily, less expensive on eBay than you are going to be able to find anywhere else. So 300 centimeters, $16. Simple, flexible, add to cart. Spade connectors for the motor. You just look up spade connectors. And I forget what size they are. But you guys get the idea. If you need to find any other electrical items, soldering, like soldering a soldering iron, a rotary tool, any other just basic tech stuff that you're gonna need from lubricant, anything like that, you can find here easily. One thing you should not forget to buy is shims. Shims are very important, very very important. So let's go here. Shim prices. I haven't bought shims in a minute because I buy in bulk for like simple stuff like O-rings and shims. I buy those things in bulk. Where are shims? Am I going crazy? I can't find shims on their website. You know what? I wasn't even gonna buy these anyway. Prometheus shims are actually really good. I recommend you buy Prometheus shims. They come in a plethora of sizes. I use Prometheus shims and GMP shims. Those are my favorite. GMP shims because they come in the two smallest sizes and they're super cheap. Hopefully they're not out of stock. Hopefully they're not out of stock because GMP shims are honestly the truth. They're out of stock. Well, I would buy these, $5, zero point 0.2 and 0.1 millimeters. Um, yeah, plenty of them. So instead, we're just gonna stick with Prometheus ones. Let's go ahead and add. We should be good with 2 sets of shims. That should be more than enough to shim the old gearbox. But for future reference, let's go ahead and add 4 of them. So we have a total of 24 of each size of the shims because it comes with 6 of each kind. And we should be good for shimming gearboxes on gearboxes. So add that to the cart. And that's pretty much all we need to do. So yeah, that's let's go ahead and see what the final price is. $600 here on this website. $82 here. Shipping estimator. I don't know. Shipping on this would probably be $10, I would assume. Shipping here would probably be $3. Shipping here is super cheap, and we're only buying one thing from here, the spring, and then free shipping on all this stuff right here. So let's go ahead and fire up the calculator. So 601. I usually round up and round down. That's the best way to get the prices. Tag $10 on top of this plus 92 plus. Let's go ahead and say $10. Including shipping, probably cheaper than that, plus 24. And then let's tag on, let's say you're starting completely from scratch, you don't have anything, you need to buy tools, you need to buy lubricant, soldering iron. You shouldn't be doing too much soldering unless you're doing a battery swap. But let's say you need all that stuff, let's just add an extra $100 on top of that for buying all the miscellaneous teching items that you're going to need. And you're looking at $827, and this should be a fairly balanced build. Now, again, this is assuming you're using completely stock gear inner barrel setup. Again, for a gun like this, you should necessarily need to upgrade the hop-up bucking and barrel out of the box because it comes with full metal hop-up bucking. GMP barrels are actually pretty decent quality. You can just by cleaning them, and if you wanted to lap them, you could, but just by cleaning them, you're going to get really good performance. I personally want to change the inner barrel if you don't see an issue, like there's something wrong with it. But just for the sake of the argument, you can go ahead and add an upgraded hop-up bucking. What's a good one? I like Mad Bull Blues. And honestly, those are pretty consistent buckings. Add a pack of Mad Bull Blues to the hop-up. And there, you're done. This is a really good balance setup. Again, that extra $12. 840 bucks. Pretty balanced setup, in all honesty. $300 gun, $370 gun. So you're spending a little over half of that. Let's see, 370 times 2, that would be 740. So you're spending 470 bucks, $500 on internal parts. That's a pretty decent setup, in my honest opinion. Pretty decent setup, and you're gonna have yourself a pretty wild time with this build. So that's a proper way on how to build an airsoft gun, in my personal opinion, a DSG in this case. Again, you could do it a plethora of different ways. You could save a bunch of money, knock off 40 bucks, $50 by getting the SHS setup with the pre-cut tappet plate. That could work really well. You could buy a Perun MOSFET for less expensive. You could go with a gate WARFET, a gate MOSFET, or something simple as keep stock trigger switch system. You could go with SGS piston. I wouldn't, but you could. Cheaper motor. This bill could easily come down at least $100 in price point. Cheaper bushings, cheaper tablet plate. You don't have to buy all these miscellaneous parts. But yeah, this is a pretty basic DSG setup. What you could expect to spend on a gun like this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Just a little walkthrough, in my opinion, that should prove helpful to you guys. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.